so we can get started and catch them up. And we can, so I had put together, there was a brief agenda, which is to just review any meetings, and, continue to talk about recommendations that we were talking about last time. And I sent out to everybody at the day after the last meeting, I sent out the recommendations as we had discussed them, but I didn't get any comments back, I don't think, from anybody. And that's okay, because I haven't paid any attention this week.
I don't think I even looked for them. I never saw them, but I don't know if I ever looked for them either.
Yeah, I mean, I can always pull them up on my screen too. Oh, we do have Albert.
Albert, okay.
Hey,
Cool.
Albert.
He said he was
Hi,
gonna.
Albert.
He said he was gonna try and join.
Hey, Albert.
Hi, Albert.
You're never this quiet, Albert. Start talking.
Hi, Albert, anyway. So, and I can put the recommendations up on the screen when it's time to, if we want to do that again. I'm happy to do that so we can talk about them when we're talking about them. I guess the only, go ahead.
Marlene, the last, let me see. Yeah, I don't have anything either. I'm looking at all my, I don't have anything that
Well,
was sent out since.
I don't think I had it either.
guys,
But I blame myself for not finding it, but maybe I didn't
All
get
right.
it.
yeah, I'm gonna find it and resend it.
They
So-
had one thing from the last meeting that I don't think I probably got across when I was talking near the end.
Yeah,
We're talking about, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and
Yep.
mountain biking. I firmly believe all that is going on now and is the right thing to do. But my problem with that was when we was talking about, renting skis and snowshoes and bikes. I don't see that working at all in our area that is not a resort area. I think it's just throwing money away. So I just want to make that clear that because I've cross-country skied in there, I've snowshoed, obviously I bike in there, hike in there, all that kind of stuff. Unlike Marlene, I'm not a runner, but I could do that too, I guess. But I just want to make that clear because I don't think I did make it clear.
right.
Yeah. Hey, just a correction here. I do see you sent on January 20th, you did send out preliminary recommendations from the discussion on January 18th. So I stand corrected.
Okay.
I don't want to feel like I don't need more guilt. No piling on guilt.
You
guess
did,
I'll
so
be
you
corrected.
did send it. You did send it out.
I didn't see it. Hi, Albert.
Can I follow up on what Harry had to say about
Yes.
equipment? I think I agree, Harry. At this point in time, I think that that's not, if the idea is to figure out ways to make money, that's definitely not a moneymaker at the scale that it would be happening in this place. But I do think it might be an interesting recommendation if we're, if we're putting all kinds of ideas on the table. I know that for instance, when the skating loop is working at Community Field, they've had skates that people can borrow, which is great for people in the city who want to be able to use that but don't have skates. And so I think that, ideas that might be interesting for the city to hear might be, can donated equipment be available for people to borrow to recreate around the reservoir? But that's definitely not I agree with you, that's not a money-making proposition at all. But I think it might be an interesting idea to explore.
But the question I'll raise with you then would be, okay, that's good, but where are we going to store them?
Absolutely. I don't think it's a proposal that flies right now. But if some of what we're outlining is like, here are some big dreams for what could happen on the side of the mountain if there was if a bunch of agencies were working together.
Oh, like if there was that whole North
Yeah.
Holyoke plan.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting concept, but I agree with Harry, it's not going to fly now.
Right.
Promoting recreation is, I think, what we all want to do. And
Yeah.
that's certainly a good thing there, Kate.
So do we want to do like a 2-minute overview. So Jeff, of our discussion last week with Dave Conti?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
so last Tuesday, Dave and Jeff and I went to see Dave Conti and talk about where we were. He had listened in, I think, on the public meeting and was pleased, I think, to hear all the community support. His thing is, in all seriousness, just trying to figure out how to preserve things the way they are, in a way. And the other notion he threw out there was well, you know, what you do at Whiting Street, you'd have to do it at Ashley. Was another concept that he raised, something like consistency. He did mention that they're looking to do an auto renewal thing with the New England Trail people. But they haven't accomplished that yet. But some of the things that keep his thinking to, we shouldn't really do more than we're already doing. Things like insurance liability, things like they got enough to do and they're not staffed to do more, including, you know, a lot of more paperwork and those sorts of administrative duties that take away from their mission to keep the reservoir as a reservoir. Was sort of, I think, his main thought he wanted to communicate, keep the reservoir as a reservoir.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. He did speak as if he thought sooner than later there would be a need for the water in the reservoir. I thought that's what he was pretty clearly saying. He felt like there was going to be
and also like neighboring communities, you know, so not just Holyoke, but in addition to Holyoke, other places.
Right. And the other thing I'll say is, so we laid out kind of some of our big recommendations, and we talked in some detail about the ones that we thought he might, you know, have some concerns about. And so we talked at length about long-term protection options, particularly through a conservation restriction. And I will say that he was not in any way in favor of that. And
right.
So, so his point was, look, the reservoir is protected. You know, it's been, you know, the Water Commission has made sure it's been protected for 150 years, is what I think he said, and they will continue to do that. Now, we also pointed out that, you know, he admitted he's going to retire, and I think he said 23 months.
And
so I don't know if that's
and he's the other board member too, right?
Right, and right, and so and right, and also in attendance was Billy.
Billy Harbless.
Yeah, Billy Harbless.
Yeah, Billy Harbless,
who's a commissioner, and of course there are two new commissioners just appointed to the Waterworks. But we said, look, you know, the city council changes, the mayor changes, and your commissioners change, and so these things are still in flux. But he made it very clear it would be difficult. It would make management of, you know, having to go through, even if he was in the driver's seat to work out the conservation restriction and there was an associated management plan, he felt like there would be so many hoops for him to have to jump over all the time that it would be very difficult to manage the reservoir in that kind of setting. And so I respect that. I think he's probably right. I said to him, I still think as a committee, we should recommend the city assure there is long-term protection on Whiting Street Reservoir, but that we would also note that this could cause, would have management implications for Holyoke Water Works, and that would need to be worked out. So we had that very frank discussion, and it was a good discussion, and it lasted quite a while. What he was very supportive of, though, was the idea of an area management plan, not a zoning, not a broader planning document that's part of the master planning, but a specific area management plan, maybe facilitated by the city and with all the kind of adjacent landowners. And he was also seemed willing to be part of a management group of area landowners and DCR and other players there. And I thought I didn't think he would be. I thought he would be equally concerned about that, but he thought that was a good idea, and he saw that as being something very viable. And I will remind folks that we did put in a grant, actually a request for consideration of an MVP grant for $100,000 to do that, kind of an area management plan framework for that area. Whether or not, the mayor was willing to support us doing that. And so that is in. I think you guys know that. I think we talked about that last meeting, but it is in. And so
When might we hear anything on that?
yeah, I talked to Yoni about that last week, and he said that's really up to the state. They would likely be getting back to us in the next couple of weeks, but they get to pull us together. And that would likely be Andrew Smith. So that's someone we know, so that can be helpful.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any updates, news, anything they've heard or seen? Or
I'll just mention that history I sent you people, and then the conversation I had with Dave. Pretty much, simpler version, but exactly what you guys just discussed. He thought that it'd be too cumbersome for a conservation restriction. Nothing can happen to it now. The only building or anything can go on is something to do with the water supply. So as far as he's concerned, it's protected going along. But what you guys were saying, as far as 20 years from now, even 5 years from now, 50 years from now, who knows? So, there's two sides of that conversation, I guess.
yeah. And Kate, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I still think it's worth suggesting, knowing that it's a suggestion to consider it, because I think that, especially if Mr. Conti's retiring in 2 years, it may be that whoever comes on next into that role has sort of come through their training or their early career years expecting things to deal with things like conservation restrictions. And so I can really appreciate that it might not be something that we want right at the minute, but it might feel very different 2 years from now if management then is kind of used to working in that framework already.
So Kate, I agree with that. And I think there's a way we could write the recommendation, is just that the city needs to assure long-term protection for to make a commitment to long-term protection for the reservoir. And that can be done. It could be done through ordinance. It could be done through it could be done through the CR. So we might be able to lay out some possibilities, but that the city needs to assure the public that this area will be protected for the long term.
Yeah,
maybe that's a way we.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't have some language that expressed that idea that this,
And-
the strong notion of long-term protection.
And it may be the case since we were charged with coming up, seeing if there were any revenue generating opportunities. I mean, that is a revenue, like a one-time revenue generator that, future administrations of the waterworks might think was worth the trade-off.
It was a cost benefit discussion was how Dave sort of framed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave constantly mentioned that
Yep. Cost
who's going to
benefit.
pay for these are costs to us. It will take us longer for permits. We'll have to get approval. We'll have to go through every 2 years an audit, to be part of it, as part of the CR process. So he believed that there would be a lot more costs than the initial income.
Right.
Of course we countered that a little bit, but
I asked him if he wanted to, think back his retirement a few more decades so that we can ensure there's longer term protection since he's done such a good job protecting it. Oh well. Anyway, so yeah. So I think good discussions. And we have recommendations that we can up. Can we up? I can put it on the screen and try to edit it.
It would be helpful.
So let me see if I can. All right, I got this.
So our little drafting committee has been meeting we met over the holidays, and we've really met every single week since. But and we've had some good and important discussions. But I still don't feel like we have quite, we haven't nailed down recommendations, and so because of that, we don't really have, can't move forward. So it would be helpful to try to nail down our recommendations. I'll just say that.
Right. And, I don't think we're going to get it done, but I think we need to, build out here where we can build out, narrow down, stretch out, figure out where we need, if these are the recommendations, then we've got to, once we nail down the recommendations, I think then it'll be easier to construct the report outline to make sure that we've covered all of the back information that we need then going forward to support the recommendations.
So were you thinking, Marlene, that we would go through the larger recommendations point by point and see if
Yeah, why don't we do
what
that?
were you thinking?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
So I guess I would just start by, under long-term protection, a bullet ahead of the consider conservation restriction, and I would put that the city makes a strong commitment to long-term protection of the Whiting Street Reservoir.
Okay.
Jeff, do you have other suggestions about how to do you have some specific suggestions to make about how to do that? I mean, I think a conservation restriction is one. But are there other specifics we could recommend?
Well, I think there could be city ordinance. I think there could be that one's a little, that could go both ways though, if we went down that road.
Yeah, I mean, every time you open up something to political, then there's always a balance.
Yeah, I still think conservation restriction is the first one. I think an area plan, you know, to consider broader protections for the entire area. I think that's again, if more than just, and that's the other thing that, you know, an area, if we did an area management plan, you know, we could have certain activities focused on certain other ownerships. You know, that would give us more opportunity for the recreational opportunities and things like that.
So
Might not be appropriate for Whiting Street.
So we have the city making a commitment, then broader protection for the whole conservation North Holyoke area.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Again, we can refine that, but
Right.
I do think that is one way to do it. Beyond that, Kate, I don't, you know, I think you're limited. I mean, there could be ways. So, you know, there are things that the city could do related to the deed, you know, to accept their own, you know, kind of deed restrictions that could also occur. That's rarely done because the question is who would hold those restrictions. But if it's written into the deed, that's also, it's a possibility.
Right.
We would have to, you know.
Did Dave Conti know, at Holyoke Waterworks, do they have a copy of the deed? Remembering that was an issue that
No,
Pioneer Valley Planning Commission brought up also.
No, the deed still has not surfaced and no one seems to have a direct link to where it is. There's been discussion on, you know, the fact that, you know, at one time we were part of Northampton. And so
I would think that then that's another item we should suggest, is that the city should put some resources towards actually finding the deed.
oh, good point.
And we can take the information. One of the reports from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission gives some information about where it is in what the books, but then it hasn't actually been found. So,
I think another thing that can be done by the city is to reiterate the protections and commitments under Article 97. I think that could be another bullet. I mean, just again, to lay that out and have it addressed somewhere, you know, how do you do that? Do you do it in a planning document? You know, but you make it very clear that this area is protected under Article 97, and and the city intends to continue to manage that way into the future.
Okay.
That's all the ideas I've got. I'm out of ideas.
I think with the city ordinance point, that's more of a, like, asking them to consider rather than suggesting that they need to.
Right.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think we have to be careful with that one.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you just have to be careful with it.
Should
There
we
you go.
Yeah.
All right. Other protection ideas. We've got the broader protection for the whole conservation area. Do we want to suggest, as part of long-term protection, the development of that area plan? Do we want to put that up here?
Well, so
Possibly through creation of see below.
So there's kind of two things, you guys. So it seems like the broader protection for whole conservation North Holyoke area, that's through the master planning, through a master planning process, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
what Josh already said he wants to do. So this
Yeah.
would give him some impetus. But then I think we should also, you know, we have a recommendation down below for the area management plan. We can reference it again here. But I do think
That's
you should
what I was thinking.
list through, I think I would say through the master planning effort for the, where you are there, just to be specific about how we're asking for that.
Through the master planning effort. Kip's coming through the master planning effort.
I think Jeff was referencing the line above, like adding that to the line above it.
Okay,
Right, Jeff?
Correct. Thank you, Kate.
there. I made it a sub bullet under that. I think. Do we want to, in one of these, either the first one to establish broader protection, potentially through the master, as part of that master planning process, establish or I was just thinking of moving that area-wide management plan as part of this long-term, thinking of it as part of long-term protection, but maybe I'm overthinking it.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, but I'm not sure it really belongs there because it is separate. I mean, it's, it's day to day. We want to address day to day kind of management issues with that.
True. Okay.
So I just think we have to be careful about that.
Hi, Kip. How are you? You're on.
I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, no problem. Glad you're here. All right. Any other protection ideas that people want to throw in the mix?
Might be helpful just to let Kip know that. So Kip, Dave Conti wasn't a huge advocate of a conservation restriction. So we had a good conversation about it, and we are saying now we'll probably still recommend it, but we will recommend it more softly and give other options. So we're going to say the city should make a strong commitment to long-term protection, and a conservation restriction could be one of those. But Dave Conti's biggest concern was it would impact his ability to manage things day to day, especially if something came up on like an emergency basis.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. We've talked about this a whole bunch, right? Like the whole water department is about, maintaining water quality and access to drinking water, and conservation restriction probably doesn't benefit him or them very much, right? So it ties their hands potentially on some things, but they don't see, right? They likely wouldn't see the financial benefit, right? It would probably come to the city. So it's kind of, I guess, a natural and expected kind of conflict of interests, not interest, but, one entity's primary responsibilities is not necessarily generating $1 million or $500,000 or $250,000 for the city coffers. No.
Yeah, I don't think any of us understand right now where the money would go, and but I don't think it seemed to make it, even if the money went directly to the water department,
Right.
I didn't,
Right.
didn't seem to be in favor of it.
Right.
But again, we don't need him to be in favor of it, but it's a consideration, right? And certainly we're
Right.
changing our tune a bit too.
I mean, I think the approach to make make a soft recommendation under the category of protection and with an opportunity to, go down further down scroll, then generate some revenue. And let whoever's going to make those decisions make them, right? It's not us. So it seems like a good compromise to me. I fully support that approach.
Okay. All right, so the next area we had was improved public access and enhanced community engagement. Those are some of the things we chatted about on the last call. Anything here people like, don't like, see missing? And, when we talk about, recommendations, so if we make as a recommendation, for example, improve public access and community engagement, and we list as one of those topics, transportation, are we then gonna, and parking, are we gonna say you should have parking somewhere, that shouldn't, so what are the pieces of these recommendations that are legit? So that are worth noting, and to what extent, to what detail, so I guess that's my kind of next question, is if we're talking about things like as a bullet point, it's easy to list bullet points, but then I wonder in the report, what does that really mean? How do we develop those out? How much do we want to say? What do we mean by transportation, parking? We want to have some, we don't think we need to do any, so in each of these, we would need, I think, to express in more detail what the recommendation actually is, as opposed to like a bullet point.
I think in my mind, the transportation and parking issues, I understand that, like, the waterworks doesn't want to bring a lot more people there. So I don't think we want to recommend create a big parking lot. But I do think that it would be good if access was more equitable, and in fact, that might take some of the pressure off parking. So I would say, in any case, I would love the city to consider things like bike racks, the possibility of a one of the bike share company having a stop up there, and a bus stop, or like easy accessibility.
Yeah.
You might be able to flag at the bottom of the street. I can't remember. But I think all those things should be highlighted so that there's more kind of equity of access. And that might also diminish the need for parking, even without restricting the number of people.
Yeah, let's give everybody a PVTA bus pass. Better idea.
I would love that, actually. I think that's a great idea. Free PVTA bus for everybody. But I do think that that question also comes under the rubric a little bit of a area-wide management plan.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, I think they all do.
Yeah, the notion of physical construction, to me, more speaks to the whole area plan, as opposed to suggesting or recommending that, they develop a 50-car parking space or have a rack of kayaks or, any of that stuff.
And I think that bullet point you just wrote could go under transportation and parking just as easily as under universal access. To me,
Yeah.
A lot of the universal access stuff is like, is there, can you get around the trail around the reservoir if you have some mobility impairments, for instance?
Mm.
So we said universal access above. Do we want to be more clear about handicap access or?
Well, access for folks with disabilities, but also, just in general,
No
access
question.
issues.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. But
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying, do you also
Yeah.
want to,
yeah,
we have, right. We have above more opportunity for community access than we have universal access. And so,
yeah. So we just need to
just to,
reorganize these in a way that they fit
Well,
together.
right. I mean, this is still an outline. And I guess
Yeah.
I envision a strong, succinct recommendation for each one of these bullets. And then, maybe a paragraph describing what we mean for each of those. That's kind of what I have in my mind, how we would write this up.
Because I do think in a way, so many of them interrelate to each other. I mean, we're talking about the
Exactly.
bike racks as one obvious thing, but the school field education programs also help create community engagement
Mhm.
and access for a larger swath of the community.
Right.
For instance, they're all linked.
Oh. All right.
Right. And if we were going to say, I mean, again, there may be opportunities for some of the recreational activities that wouldn't be appropriate on the reservoir to be appropriate at one of the adjacent properties. And that would require, coordination. So how does the coordination happen? It happens through the area-wide management plan and whatever group enforces that plan. Whether it's we haven't talked about whether there's a committee associated, with that. I think there probably needs to be, but we haven't. That's not a bullet yet. Are we talking about, we talk about bringing neighbors and abutting properties into one framework. What is,
What is
assume,
that?
is it appointed by city council? Is it appointed by the mayor? Is it, do they have any authorities? So that's something that requires some
Right.
thought and
who's the convener of this? How does that group get convened? Is it a city function? Is it a function of a department?
and if you guys remember when we talked to, and I think it was David Sewer that said it, Eric Sewer that said it, was that the city actually, for instance, when all the properties, when the ski area, when Mountain Park closed and the land was broken up, the city convened that to make sure there were protections there. And they also convened a group. And so, like Eric Schur said, he'd be very comfortable with the city having a role in that. And we asked Dave Conti the same thing. And he said, yes, he thought the city needed to be the convener. And he even said it probably needed to be the planning department.
Right.
So, and yeah. And by the way, that's who the mayor and Yoni have kind of indicated would likely help staff the MVP grant if we got that. Kate, have you heard about that? Has there been any discussion internally or with the
That
planning?
hasn't come to the planning board, but it wouldn't necessarily if it was something that Aaron Vega was the person, it doesn't necessarily come through planning board.
Yeah, I haven't had a conversation with Aaron, and I asked Yoni if he had. I don't think. I think they've talked, but I don't think they've talked in any any detail. And when we went to meet with the mayor, we suggested that maybe he may want to consider having Aaron there, but Aaron was not there. I'm not sure. You know, again, you can only suggest so much to the mayor, you know. And of course, Dave Conti said he was completely against fishing and any type of, his statement was, any type of water access at all is totally inappropriate there and significantly impacts their liability insurance, which does not allow it at all. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen. It's just repeating what he said.
I think that's, I don't know. I personally, as much as it would be nice to enhance those things happening throughout the city, I would kind of agree that this isn't a place for it. And that if we're going to suggest, for instance, more canoeing and kayaking, then we should be, you know, investing more in the boathouse or, you know, other locations. And, you know, fishing similarly with the fishing access that's already in the city. Can we create more access on the river where it doesn't create the concerns that it would at the reservoir?
No, I agree. And again, Dave Conti started off our conversation with basically saying this area is going to be needed for water supply, and we are going to have to think about having a treatment source there. I mean, that's how we started the conversation. So
Yep.
maybe that was to put us on the defensive. I don't know, but you know,
That was the, you know, that was the lead,
yeah.
the lead in, so. And, you know, I think, you know, the idea of, you know, talking through the individual recommendations is giving me some framework for, you know, how this might want to be constructed in a way that's, you know, you can have some recommendations that are, you know, concise, clear. You can do like a couple of pages up front, executive summary kind of thing. We'll do, you know, these are the and then the report then would be the, you know, how we got there, sort of.
I guess I was just gonna go back to the last point about recreation sort of in the water or on the water. If our recommendations are pushing against the waterworks in any way, I'd rather push on the conservation restriction than push on kayaks.
So these things that we have here, cross-country skiing, mountain bikes, fishing, can't see under the picture. So I leave them in, take them out.
And I would be inclined to just say, like, you know, enhance land-based recreational activities. I guess I wouldn't be inclined to put fishing and canoes in there, but that's I just feel like it creates so many issues that that may be at cross purposes to the larger discussion of conservation.
Should we also
Anybody else?
put something in there about not having any surface water activities? Do you think we want to do that or no? I mean, we're going one way saying land. Do we want to make it more clear?
I mean, I guess I would, you know, say that we're not suggesting to add any water-based activities on the reservoir, given the conservation imperative.
How's that?
Looks like exact words captured to me.
All right, I'm eliminating fishing. Wait, there goes fishing. Canoeing. You can ride bikes up there now, right?
Yes, and remember, he mentioned he didn't have any problem with that, except he did very clearly mention he had problems with e-bikes.
Yes, he did. If there was like a level of, there's,
Yeah, I don't know the
there's
levels.
electric assist. I
He
don't-
said like E3 and E4 are fine, but
Well,
something like
there's,
that.
no, he said those two were not fine, and then there was one that was. So if it didn't have pedals, he wasn't, he was definitely against it.
I think there's 3 different levels, and I don't know the third one, but there's the pedal assist, which means that in order for the E part of the battery to kick in, you need to be pedaling. It's an assist. Then there's one that it's just like a motorcycle or a moped with just a throttle, and you don't have to do anything. But some of those have pedals to start them.
Oh,
And then there's another one too, and I'm not sure
Here.
exactly where that falls on mine, but
What are you, a bike expert or something?
I'm not.
Harry might be.
I should be more of an expert than I am, but my son's in charge of that category today, so I'm throwing out bits
No,
and pieces.
that's good. So I will say, that we could consider we could consider recreational activities that are inappropriate for Whiting Street Reservoir on adjacent properties as part of an overall area plan. I mean, that's something you could say, but I don't know whether that's something we want to say. I'm just saying that is.
All right. Well, tell me what that was and we can discuss it. Okay. Support additional,
Consider additional.
consider.
on adjacent properties that would not be appropriate within the Whiting Street Reservoir property. Yep. Good job of capturing stuff. I know it's not easy to try to facilitate.
Well, and I can't see, I see your pictures. I don't,
Mm,
so I'm not, I can't see under people's faces. If you know what I mean.
Well, you only have to hear what we say.
Okay.
So, I'm wondering, Marlene, I feel like the support existing activities and other recreational activities seem a little redundant now because mountain bikes and cross-country skiing, so I would,
Like that?
well, I'm sorry, I would have kept that part. Let's see, support.
A lot of Control Z's, maybe it would come back. There it is. It's back.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because to me, the thing, if we're going to enhance the existing activities, it might be that we are considering adding trails creating more access for mountain bikes and cross-country skiing, which already can happen there, but could be enhanced.
And maybe on the mountain bikes, I mean, there's other bikes that are in there now. There's so many bikes sold today. There's gravel bikes, there's cyclocross bikes, there's road bikes, and just bicycles might be the better solution rather than saying mountain bike, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a good comment.
We could do snowshoeing.
Oh, yeah.
Bird watching.
I think we had that somewhere.
Yeah. Right, well, there was the long list, photography,
Yeah, that
orientation.
last summer we had that.
Okay, what else? I started, I put down what is the framework and the convener for the area-wide group. And all of these things, any staffing, other services, that's all under the area-wide management plan as opposed to as part of the reservoir specifically or individually. Um,
So just to, yeah, I'm thinking about, how we would, well, I'm going to hold that comment actually.
Hi. All right. Anything else that people see here? So what I'll do is I will send it off again tonight unless anybody has any other things to add. And when does this group want to reconvene? And I'll
Well-
take any ideas people have.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that same thing. How do you guys think we can, I will say I'm getting a little burnt out. We spent a lot of time, talking among ourselves, and it was really important to hear the mayor and to hear Dave Conti. And I think we know what recommendations will fly now. And I think Marlene, I think you have kind of a feel for how you think the report might look. Again, this isn't going to be a huge report, but I'm sure it'll make 20 pages by the time we have, if there's a paragraph for each of these kind of subject areas and then a paragraph for each bullet, then it'll be plenty there. Plus it's going to have the background and history and charge of the committee and that kind of stuff.
And I'd put on appendices of the planning commission's reports.
Planning Commission report, the PowerPoint we did, the comments we got from the public meeting.
Right. But I think the intent of this document is to spur additional activity, not to be a driver unto itself. I mean, I don't think we have the capacity to make, to do enough research to lay out a clear enough path forward. I mean, I think it is meant to be a catalyst for certain things. And I think we want to be careful how we set, but that's how I'm thinking of it. And so
I agree.
kind of
with
want to
you.
make sure, make sure that's make sure that I'm not the only one thinking of it that way, because then maybe that's not appropriate. But that's how we're thinking about it.
That's how I see it.
In terms of process, I mean, I feel like I'm not the person to write this. It sounds like the folks who've already been drafting it should do that, but I would be very happy to, read, comment, suggest additions once there's a draft of it. And to me, I love seeing your shining faces, but I think now it might be a time to just move into dealing with the words for a little while and have a meeting once we feel like we've got that close to done.
So I'm fine with that. The only thing that would be helpful to me, I think, is if folks that feel like I don't feel as strongly about the recreational activities, and I have plenty of space behind my own, on wildlife management area behind me, so I'm not at the reservoir all the time and don't quite understand the access issues. So I guess I would appreciate members of the committee to really make the recommendations very clear. Like if they, it would be helpful if, for instance, if someone felt strongly about the recreational piece or the access piece, that they might, make a couple recommendations. Marlene, if you feel like you have them nailed, then maybe we don't need that. But I'm just saying, it would be helpful to have,
Yeah.
And again, I suspect, we want these recommendations to be clear, each of these bullets to be clear and succinct, and then we can explain it further from there. But I would say that would be helpful to us. And then we can start at, fleshing it out and putting some meat on the bones and put the pieces together.
So how about over the next couple days, I'm going to try to make sure I've got everything on something that looks like this. I'm going to send it out. I'll send this and maybe an outline, and I'll send it out, Jeff, to you and to Dave, because he was helping us think about this, just not here today.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at it and start filling in, figure out what we're comfortable filling in. And then what I'll do is I'll assign people little pieces to work on.
That sounds
And-
just fine. to
And
me.
by the way, if you think I'm going to keep it all myself and like and not assign, got it wrong.
Yeah, I didn't think
Fine,
that.
I'll
I wasn't
assign.
under that suspicion.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and if there's like, when I'll send the recommendations out again, and I would like everybody to look at them actually and make sure I didn't miss anything you think we talked about. And while you send me back any ideas, you can also send me an email and let me know, like, if there's an area specifically that you're comfortable in doing a little bit of fleshing some text out. Because,
Right.
we're going to have multiple paragraphs in each one of these recommendation areas. So if you're comfortable, that'd be great. I'll think through an outline in my head and we'll get going, and we'll stop doing the Tuesday night meetings for a while, but another month or so, maybe we'll see how
Right,
far we
it
go.
might be wise. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to should we just set the meeting for a month from now to give us an impetus to get this done?
I think so.
Okay, then I will set the call for March 1st.
I see it's 6 o'clock, so I think we're all, but I was wondering if Albert had any wisdom for us.
Albert,
Not a word. I'm listening with great enthusiasm and confidence in what you guys are putting together. I just say two things. We tend to see Whiting as an island, and it's not. What goes on in the Mount Tom Range is going to go on in Whiting, and you're not going to stop it. So think about what you're saying, what you're doing. Don't say too much, but make it very clear that the e-bikes are here to stay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
you're the
it's gonna-
bike guy. Maybe you can help us on the bike stuff, Albert.
Well, I'll work with Harry on that because he and I have thoughts on a lot of this stuff. But seriously, there's just the growth of use of the Mount Tom Range from West Springfield to the Connecticut River. I don't think a lot of folks realize what's going on in terms of the volumes of people, the kind of activities. And again, it's just spilling over right into Whiting, whether you like it or not. And what you do about it, I have no idea. I think it's going to be a huge problem for not only for Holyoke, but East Hampton, Southampton, West Springfield, Westfield, and of course ourselves. These 5 cities that abut this mountain, and all the landowners, commercial and otherwise, have got to play a role in this whole process. I don't see how Whiting is going to get to be where we would like it to be without a bigger picture being addressed.
Well, so Albert, just so you know, and I think you heard this.
Yeah.
So the mayor is talking about a larger master planning process, and he, and so he is, and he's thinking about the, Northern Holyoke, as having some protections, and he's supportive of us doing a, kind of an area plan. It would be more of a it would be a management plan more than a planning document for us, this area plan, right?
Yep.
But it would be in concert and could set up some, it will probably be ahead of the master planning effort. So it may be able to set up, some things, we may be able to set up some things in that management planning approach that could then be taken further in a master planning effort. So that's kind of how, so we are thinking of it broader, without, our charge was not to, we can set those things up, but, and that's what we're trying to do. So we are.
My comment to that is please put it in there in a way that says, you're thinking beyond Whiting, you realize there is a bigger issues here, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Yep.
We will. Message
We got
received.
that.
God bless you. It's my spiel.
Good talking to everyone.
Same here.
Good night.
Yes.
Are we free to go?
Free to go. See y'all in a month. Jeff, we'll talk.
I'll let you go.
Oh my. All right.
Night all.
Night
Night.
all.
Bye, folks.